Being in the moment, so feeling that sunshine on your shoulders is a perfect example of that. Really kind of being in the moment and accessing the presence, the power, and the spirit of the moment, right here, right now. There's a surprising number of mindfulness jokes out there. I was surprised to learn. For instance, there's a meditation student asking their teacher how long it will take him to gain enlightenment if he practices diligently. And the meditation teacher says, 10 years. He goes, well, what if I really work hard at it and double my effort? 20 years. Okay. It's not something you get to in the future. Okay, that's not so funny. All right, here's another one. What did the meditation teacher say to the businessman, CEO, who's teaching him meditation? He says, I want you to take 3 deep, slow breaths, and then, very slowly, put down your cell phone. Good starting point. Okay. Let's see. Okay, how about this one? There's a guy who's taken a mindfulness class. They're practicing meditation, having questions from the Zen master at the end of class or something. And so, taking questions from the students. So this one person raises his hand and says, okay, so I'm meditating on my inability to meditate due to the fact that when I meditate, I can't stop thinking about how I can't meditate because I'm thinking about my inability to meditate. Is that correct? That's kind of about how we feel, I think, sometimes about mindfulness practice, meditation practice. I like this other one. It was sort of a cartoon, a person standing in line at a checkout in a store, and it says to the person behind him, I want to live in the moment, just not this moment, some other moment, like a moment on the beach. Yeah, we've all felt that on occasion. But this is it. This is the moment of our lives, right here, right now, living in the present, soaking it up, being in touch with the energy and the power and presence that's right here with us right now. You know who are the masters of that? Dogs. Dogs are the masters of that. How many of you have dogs? They live in the present, do they not? They know how to live in the present. Joe, last week, it's a common experience, really. He had the dogs out on their morning constitutional around Dublin, and they run into some of the same people on their morning walk. There's a lady who tends the landscaping at Tucci's restaurant, and there's various city employees that do the mowing and landscaping for the city. And so they greeted, I don't know, one of these city guys who does the mowing in the city cemetery, and so they greeted him rounding a corner. Oh, they were so excited to see their friend who smells of grass. Oh, there he is, we love him, all over him. Then 5 minutes later, they round a corner, there he is again. Oh, there's the man that smells of grass. They're all over him, they're so excited. It could have happened again and again, really, because the excitement is always still there. It's like that old that dog diary. Have you ever seen that online? It's a dog's diary. 8 a.m. Dog food, my favorite. 9:30, car ride, my favorite. 9:40, walk in the park, my favorite. 12 p.m., milk bones, my favorite. It kind of goes that way all through the day. This is not how we human beings tend to live our lives, with that kind of immediacy in the moment. And that's what that whole practice of mindfulness is about. And there are a lot of classes, there's a lot of practices involved in trying to come into the moment more. Because we human beings have a tendency to be elsewhere in our minds, usually past or future, something we keep reliving in the past, some idea we're stuck on, some experience we keep reviewing, or a worry about future. Worry is always about future. Any of our worries, they have to do with future, things that have not yet happened. A great quote from Mark Twain. He said, I have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened. That's about right. That's about right. I was interested to learn there was an interesting study done recently. A psychologist by the name of Matt Killingsworth, and he developed an app called trackyourhappiness.org, and it did a random survey with this, using this app, they would survey people multiple times throughout the day and night, assessing their happiness. Basically 3 questions they were asked. How happy are you at this moment? What are you doing? Are you thinking about something other than what you're currently doing? And they, kind of at random times during the day, and they got a huge number they got 650,000 real-time reports from something like 15,000 people, from very diverse group of people, 80 different countries. So all of this information about when are people happy, what they're doing, and if they're thinking about what they're doing at the moment or elsewhere, and how their happiness connects with that. So their findings, probably not that surprising, since we all have human minds and we kind of have a sense of how they work. Our minds are wandering at least 40% of the time, no matter what we're doing. And when our minds are wandering, they tend to go to unpleasant things. And they discovered that mind wandering precedes unhappiness, not the other way around. The mind wanders, then there's more unhappiness. Does this sound familiar? I think this is. So the overwhelming result of their study was people are substantially less happy when they're mind wandering, no matter what they're doing. That's interesting to reflect on. In a way, it's a creative capacity we have that our minds can be elsewhere. We can be doing something, but we can also be creatively planning something, thinking about something else. We've all done that. But his studies seem to kind of suggest overwhelmingly that we're not typically using that capability in a positive way to make ourselves happier. It tends to be something we're not so much conscious of, as our minds are just wandering in certain tracks that tend to make us less happy. A wound, something from the past, or a concern, a worry about the future. Our minds tend to go in these paths, and we need to learn some strategy. If we want to be happier and have a little more peace of mind, perhaps, that's why there's so much work on mindfulness, because all we human beings are working on this, trying to keep our minds from spinning off into worry and anxiety, or harking back to older troubles, and going over them again in our minds. There's all kinds of spiritual teachings on this, of course, from all different traditions. I like this little Zen koan one. It's a Buddhist teaching, Zen Buddhist teaching. Apparently there was a great Chinese Zen master, whose name I was probably saying wrong, Chao Chu. Late 8th century. He's said to have died at the age of 120. He had many disciples. And some of his dialogues with students, very simple little dialogues with students, have been recorded and still studied in collections of koans and teachings to this day. So here's one of those teachings. A monk said to Chao Chu, "I have just entered this monastery. Please teach me." Chao Chu said, "Have you eaten your rice gruel?" The monk said, "Yes, I have." Chao Chu looked at him and said, "Wash your bowl." And he understood. The moment of enlightenment was right there. I love that. It's just a real pithy little thing. Stay in the moment. Don't let your mind spin out. Don't look for elaborate teachings. Wash your bowl. Do what's next. Do what's before you. Be in the present. Eat your rice gruel. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches this all the time. When you're eating your soup, eat your soup. Don't be elsewhere. And when you're sitting in the sun, feel the sun. Wherever you are, be there. Be there. That's what that teaching is about, I think. Jesus certainly taught this again and again if you go through the Gospels. Do not worry about tomorrow. Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink or what you will wear. Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Strive first for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. The kingdom of God is within you, he said. So that teaching is about staying in the present, isn't it? Kingdom of God is here, is within us. The Gospel of Thomas, he says, the kingdom of heaven is spread across the earth and men see it not. That same idea, right here, right now, God is. We don't have to worry. We don't have to be, always elsewhere in our minds. Be right here. The experience of God is right here. We have trouble with that, and we have many, many contemporary teachers working on providing the same kind of guidance. How many of you have read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now? He says there's a kind of a habitual resistance in us to living in the present that creates a kind of chronic anxiety or dissatisfaction. He calls it a perpetual discontent that's considered normal, but that he says is a split that tears us apart inside because we're not really here now in our lives. We're always a little worried about this or planning that or carrying something else with us. He says, but we can bring more consciousness into our lives in ordinary situations, that this will build presence power. That sounds like a good thing, presence power in us. And we'll have that. If we build it in ordinary times, we'll have it in stressful times. We'll have it in times of crisis. So that's really sort of what mindfulness practice is all about, is finding daily ways to manage our minds a little bit so that we're more in the moment, able to experience the blessings of the moment. And if we develop a little ability to manage our minds that way, becoming conscious of where they are, just consciousness is the key thing, then when times get tough and we really need to get our minds under control, we'll have more ability to do that. We'll be able to say, no, I'm not turning my mind in that direction. I'm bringing it back here. Has anyone ever been awake at like 3 in the morning with their mind stuck on something in a path they can't get it out of? This is a skill we need to practice at certain times, especially when there's a worry, there's something, a stressor in our lives. It's helpful to have that, cultivate that ability to say, nope, I can manage my mind here a little bit. I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back here. So what are some of the ways we do that? I mean, obviously, meditation practice is a key one, and we have worries about that. I might take that one up third, but there's a lot of ways to practice mindfulness, to sort of get our minds under control a little bit and bring them right here, right now, so that we can experience more happiness, more peace, more presence, power, as Tolle would call it. So here's a couple of simpler ones that I think we all do to some degree now. The first one is savor. It's a word that's used by psychologists pretty often. Savor. Savor the moment. That's the Sunshine on the Shoulders song. That's a moment of savoring John Denver had and kind of captured for us. So often when we're kind of stuck with, in thoughts about future or thoughts about past, we're missing the presence, the power of this moment, the energy of this moment. We're not savoring it. We're not really getting the full experience of it. I was thinking about years ago when I was traveling as a college student, traveling abroad, and it was really a common thing for people to say when you're traveling with friends that you'd go to some new areas, like you'd go to Paris or something, or Oxford, or wherever we were, and people go, "Oh, it's so beautiful, I'll have to come back. I'll have to come back later." Well, how about now? How about now being the key thing? Be here now, really savor it, really soak it up. Don't think about later. You may never be here again. This is the moment. Soak it up. That's what savoring is all about. And it could be anything. It's a matter of relishing or luxuriating in an experience right here, right now. It could be while you're eating a piece of cake after church or something, or having a cookie. It could be while you're taking a shower. It could be sitting on your porch, feeling some sunshine on you. It could be singing a song. It could be anything where you are really, often it involves your senses, really luxuriating in that, savoring that experience. Then you're nowhere else. Then you're right here. If you're savoring, you're here. You're in the moment. And really experiencing the blessings of the moment. Summer is a great time for this. Find ways, to really soak up, savor the blessings of summer, the s'mores and the stars and the warm nights and the trees and the insects. Joe and I are going to a wonder workshop in a couple of weeks at Ark of Appalachia. It's our nature preserve down in southern Ohio, and it's called the Hidden World of Insects. We're going to be experiencing going on a couple of some hikes at night as well as during the day, and we've been promised we'll see thousands of fireflies. We'll be getting into the height of firefly season in a couple of weeks. Thousands of fireflies representing at least 6 species. Did you know we have 6 species right here in our backyards? I didn't either. North America has 150 species of fireflies. That's pretty neat. And across the world, there are some 2,000 species of fireflies lighting up our skies. So much under the radar of our regular consciousness and awareness. We have to take a moment to savor that. You know, there are some places, we had a niece visiting from California who never experienced fireflies and was entranced to see one. It is fabulous, isn't it? We kind of forget to savor it. We forget to really soak that up. There's so many experiences like that. If we really train ourselves, we can bring ourselves more into the present and really savor and relish the exquisite beauty of this moment. That's a way of getting our minds under control, bringing them into the present of our lives. Second one, an easy one for us all to do, is the experience of flow. Again, it's a term a psychologist devised, whose name I can't pronounce, but he wrote a book called Flow. Mihaly, I'm not even going to try it. Csikszentmihalyi. How's that? But anyway, the experience of flow is something we've all experienced. We probably all have some elements in our lives, some things we do that give us this experience of flow, which is that you're so absorbed in this thing you're doing. It could be woodworking. It could be putting together model airplanes. It could be, for me, yoga. It could be doing yoga, a certain routine I do. It could be any number of things, building something, making something. It could be rock climbing, all kinds of physical tasks. Could be gardening. Things where they're doable tasks. There's a goal. You move through the tasks. You know what your next step is always. You get so absorbed in the task, your mind isn't anywhere else. It brings us into the present. It's a mindfulness practice. Sewing, quilting, any kind of craft work or art, any kind of art really. When you're painting a painting, are you thinking about your anxieties for the future? I don't think so. You're more often right here. It's color, it's texture, you're in the moment. You might think about what in your life gives you that moment. There's a certain refreshment that comes from doing these experiences, isn't there? A refreshment that comes from flow. When we're involved in something that's very immediate. We're right here, right now. We're absorbed in this task. We're completing it step by step. When we're done, there's a sense of satisfaction. You've completed it. And you've rested your mind from that sometimes exhausting wandering in other directions and the tracks it can go in. We can savor, we can flow, we can have an experience of flow. Third one is, and this is just the simplest approach to meditation there is, and probably the most powerful, we can breathe. We can breathe. There's no better way to get your mind under control and come back into the present moment than focusing on our breath, because it's always with us. And we always have that ability to bring our minds back. I'm just going to breathe in, feel the air going in and out, I'm going to breathe out. And it can be immediately settling and centering. It's the simplest, easiest thing to do. We find it too simple, I think. We can't believe that it can be effective because it's such a simple thing to follow our breath in and out, to focus on our breath. There's an old New Yorker cartoon. I don't know if you ever looked at the New Yorker magazine, all their wonderful cartoons. There's 2 monks sitting side by side, like cross-legged. One is younger, one is older. And the younger one is just looking at the older one kind of quizzically. And the text says, the older one says, Nothing happens next. This is it. This is it. We always think, what's the next thing? Isn't something else supposed to happen? This is it. We just sit and we focus on our breath coming in and out, and we let it steady and center us. And as we do that, we develop this ability to bring our minds back in ordinary, daily ways. And then when things are tough and our minds are way out of control, we'll have this ability to bring it back under control because we've cultivated it on a day-to-day basis. So often, we think we can't meditate because we can't quiet our minds. That's not the tracking of the mind, becoming conscious of our wandering minds is the practice. That's it. That's it right there, to become aware. Thinking about dinner later, I can do that later on. I'm going to focus on my breath right now. I'm thinking about what I said yesterday that I shouldn't have said, but I'm going to come right back now and focus on the breath. And as we cultivate that ability to become conscious of where our minds are and bring them back, we develop a skill for managing our minds a little bit that will serve us in good stead in times of trouble. I think we each have unique sensitivities, or kind of certain dark currents our minds can go in that are somewhat unique to us. Don't you agree? That from our past or anxieties we have about the future, a kind of a track our minds will get in that's difficult for us to control, that might go there before we're even conscious of that's happening. And having some kind of a meditation practice will help us begin to learn to interrupt the flow of that current and redirect it. I'm not going to let my mind be carried down that dark current anymore. I'm bringing it back. It's something we can all do. Even when these dark currents get triggered somehow. There's a wonderful quote from Viktor Frankl. Have you ever read Viktor Frankl? Man's Search for Meaning, one of the most powerful books probably I ever read. He said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. I think that's true. We get triggered and our minds start going, but there's a space there if we could become conscious. And in that space, we have the power to choose our response. Then he adds, in our response lies our growth and our freedom. I think that's true. That's probably the ultimate freedom, is when we can get our minds under control and say, I'm not going to respond in that old way, where my mind would go down that path and I'd be miserable for the next half day, or I'm not going to fly off into anger and be stuck in that place for hours or even for 5 minutes. I'm going to make a different choice and I'm going to bring my mind back. That's freedom, isn't it? Then you are not enslaved by your mind and the dark currents it wants to take you along. We also think we don't have time for meditation, and I think that's a wily trick of the ego that always thinks it's so important, that part of us. We've got so many things to do, and they're so important, and we're so busy, we can't spare even 10 minutes for meditation. It's a kind of a wily trick of the ego, when in fact, even just 5 minutes a day will bring rich rewards. 5 minutes a day of just following the breath in and out will guide us and teach us an ability to be in the moment and to become aware of where our minds are taking us and to bring them under our control a little bit. So why don't we do that right now? Just all close our eyes for a moment and just do a little breath meditation. Just be very relaxed in your chair in any way that feels comfortable to you. Just take a breath in slowly. Nice long breath, and let it out even a little longer, nice and slow. We'll do that again, being aware of the breath, feeling it come into your body, feeling it go out. Just a couple more, just taking a nice long, slow breath, feeling the air. feel just a little bit calmer, just a little bit. I think it's a subtle, but it's a very real effect just from following the breath in and out of the body and bringing our minds back when it goes somewhere else. I think summer is a wonderful time to practice mindfulness, to practice this is it, to practice being here now, as Ram Dass wrote a book about many years ago, to practice savoring the moments of our days, slowing down a little and really soaking up summer moments, the blessings of nature all around us, to have times of flow, where you're gardening, or you're yogaing, or you're stretching, or you're walking, or whatever it is that's a flow activity in your life, where you're just doing that and you're being in that moment. The rich benefits of being in the moment. More happiness, more peace, more awareness of where our minds are. And if we can work in some of this exercise of just breathing in and out, just following our breath, practicing that very simple meditation skill, we will be using our minds in a powerful way to steady and center ourselves, to make ourselves happier and more peaceful. I savor the blessings of this moment. Let's affirm that. I savor the blessings of this moment. Let's take that into prayer. Feel that awareness and that intention inside. We savor the moment. All the rich blessings of this very moment, our ability to breathe in and out, to experience the loving kindness in this community, to feel the beauty of the summer day all around us in this sacred space, to feel the peace that steadies us, the life flowing through us. We savor that at this moment, and we declare our intention to savor it through all the moments of the week before us. Thank you, God, for your living presence within us and all around us. We affirm our oneness with you, and we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.